Assalamu alaikum and welcome to another live. So guys, today I want to share some thoughts in regards to life and the life that we're living, or the life that we find ourselves in. See, I was thinking about this last night and I was really trying to, get my head around this, because sometimes, when we make videos against atheists, and we can come across quite aggressive, and we can come across in a way where we appear insensitive to them. And something I've been thinking about that, is that with most atheists, at least, I can appreciate that it's very difficult sometimes to reconsider the atheism, and it's very difficult to move away from atheism. And sometimes the reason is because we live in a world which caters towards atheism. It caters for atheism. We live in a world which gets you to focus on the world, focus on the material realm, focus on what's in front of you. We live in a world which pushes the philosophy of materialism. It tells you in many different ways that your objective is to make the most of the world. Your objective is to focus on the material. Your objective is to attain as much wealth as you can. Your objective is to buy a house, a car, have a good material life. Your objective is to live fully, and at the very same time, we are taken away from focusing on anything beyond this material world, and any thought of a metaphysical, non-material, non-physical realm, any thought of a God, a creator, is frowned upon. It's presented as something silly, and something people of old would focus on, something which is not for the modern man or modern woman. These are things that are just fables of the past, stories of the past, things immature people believed in, things people that had a lower level of intellect believed in. That's the world we live in. So from that perspective, you can see why it may be very difficult for some atheists to shake off their atheism or move away from atheism, although they can see the problems with atheism, although they can see the issues they're dealing with day to day, whether they be psychological, whether they be practical. They can see them right in front of them. They may be experiencing them, but yet still they cannot shake off or move away from atheism. And it's because of the things that I've just mentioned. It's because the world we live in, it's like literally being plugged into the matrix. Most of you, I'm sure most of you guys have seen the movie. Most of you guys have seen the Matrix. And it's a very interesting idea that's presented in the movie. Generally speaking, it's that, we are living life, and people are living life, and they believe that life to be true, but it's actually not reality. People are actually plugged into a simulation, and they're made to believe what they're experiencing is real, but the real world is something else. Now, I want to take this sort of metaphor today and just quickly get us to reflect upon this. And what I want to suggest and highlight, and the way I want us to get to think about life, is in the very same way. We are born into a world, a post-enlightenment world, a world which is focused on the material. Its philosophy is the material is all that exists. The physical world is all that exists, and that's what's relevant. That's what you need to be working towards. That's what needs to be achieved. And on top of this, the physical material world around us is beautified. It's made to look pretty. It's full of distractions, full of activities, full of things that just keep you constantly stimulated, constantly plugged in. You just can't switch off. You can't unplug yourself. Constantly you have one thing to another. You jump from one thing to another. Earlier on I was speaking to a brother, and he gave an interesting example. He was saying he's walking past the canal the other day, and he just saw people fishing. I know fishing's a hobby, but he was reflecting upon it. He thought, these guys, they're spending hours and hours just engaging in this activity, which in the grand scheme of things is really, superfluous from many perspectives. You're sitting there with a rod and a line in the water, waiting hours on end, and then they catch a fish, and then they release the fish and put it back into the water. And point being, and the way he was reflecting upon it was, look, the world we live in is constantly giving us something to just focus on and keeping us constantly distracted from reality. It's preventing us from unplugging ourselves and waking up to the true reality of things. And that's the shame, really. I mean, there are so many pointers in reality. There's so many things within our psyches, within ourselves, which every so often we get a little kick from inside. It's like, wake up. There's more to life than this. Wake up. There's more to life than this, Every so often something happens in our lives and we get a little window of opportunity that opens up. There's more to life than this. You need to wake up. You need to realize that there's something behind this visual that you're presented, the screen that you're seeing. But we go back to sleep because we're so distracted. Another way we could look at this is, imagine you fall asleep right now and you wake up and you're in a deep well. You're at the bottom of a well. And you don't know how you got there. And after the initial fright and the initial anxiety, you realize that there's loads of lights in this well. There's loads of beautiful lights, it's decorated, and there's loads of things to do. And every so often you look up and you see the opening, you see the hole, the top of the well. And you see that there's a world out there, but then again you look back down and the things around you are good enough to keep you distracted. And human beings always look for ease, and they're good enough to keep you distracted to the point where you don't feel you need to make the effort to climb out of the well. We're just constantly being bombarded with the material world. And by the way, this, it doesn't only apply to atheists. This also applies to us Muslims. I've been really thinking about this and reflecting upon my life from this perspective as well recently. It's like we claim to be Muslim, and it's something for us to really think about. We claim to be Muslim, people that submit ourselves to the Creator of the heavens and the earth, people that claim to have woken up to the reality of life. But at the same time, when we look at our day-to-day lives and we really reflect upon them, many of us, I'm sure, would realize, I definitely did, many of us will realize that we're living no different to the way a non-believer is living, someone that doesn't believe in God or hasn't even recognized God or the truth of life. We're living in very similar ways. We're almost practicing a type of religious nihilism, right? Hence we run into the same problems the atheists run into from the perspective of meaning and the type of existential anxiety this causes. And this is, it's worrying if you think about it. And to be very honest, from what I've been looking into recently, something I'm becoming more and more convinced of, and something I really feel the need to share with you guys, and something that we should all reflect upon, whether atheist or theist, is that it's not a specific ideology such as atheism, which is, it's a problem, but it's not the main problem. It's a cause. It's not cause. It's an effect. It's an effect of the root cause. And the root cause really seems to be the world that we've created around us, the world that we live in. It's constantly, it's designed in a way to keep us away from the truth. It's designed in a way to keep us distracted from our Creator and distracted from fulfilling the purpose of our existence. So, I mean, we can vouch for this, Muslims especially. We know how especially the young brothers and sisters, how difficult it is, to just stay on top of the surface. To stay away from committing sins and doing things which are bad for our own souls, are bad for our own health. It's difficult because we're constantly being bombarded, and it really depresses you from that perspective. But at the same time, I want to conclude this video on a bit of a high note. At the same time, I guess what we need to realize is, first and foremost, that God has given us the ability, the rational faculties to be able to ponder upon these things and understand these things and understand the traps, first and foremost. And we need to be grateful for this, that we can see things or have the ability to see things. Whether we choose to see them or not, that's a different question. But we have the ability to see things clearly. And number two, something else we really need to be grateful for, and we can't be grateful for enough, is the fact that that God has given us revelation. He's given us the final revelation, the Quran, which He Himself has preserved, as He says in the Quran. He's revealed it and He has preserved it. And to be honest, brothers and sisters, well, imagine a world imagine living in a world today with all of these issues and problems and all of these distractions. Imagine living in a world without revelation which has been preserved. What state would we be in then? I mean, really, if we think about it. But God has made it so that revelation is preserved. So we have it and we have access to it. It's been made accessible because not only is it in the original Arabic, it's been translated into many different languages, so we can easily access it, at least its meanings, which is significant, which I would say is one of the things we really need to be focusing on the times that we live in, is the meanings of the revelation of God. What is God saying to us? How does He tell us we can protect ourselves and save ourselves from the traps of the world that we live in today? So that's there. So if we can just combine these two things, the appreciation of the intellectual and rational abilities and the insight and the consciousness that God has given us, the awareness He's given us. And on top of this, the fitrah as well, this innate disposition that lies within every single human being, which again acts as a compass. It helps direct us. When we engage in something that's bad or evil, we feel it. You don't need to rationalize it, you just know it's bad or evil. And that sense, that internal sense, is still functional to a great degree in many human beings, which is a great blessing. Obviously we batter it to the point where sometimes we become completely oblivious to it, and we just, and at that point we're completely gone. But it's still functional in many of us, that we have an awareness of right and wrong, good and bad. So there's a compass within us. We have our intellectual, rational faculties, which allow us to see what's going on and allow us to, really get to grips with reality and understand it, and therefore try to see the issues there. And then we have revelation, which is there to help guide us to the truth, guide us onto the straight path. Now, what we need to do, again, atheist or theist, Muslim or non-Muslim, what we need to really try to do is first and foremost be honest with ourselves. Look at ourselves in the mirror and just ask ourselves a very important question. What direction do I want to take? Literally, what direction do I want to take? A few things we can be sure of. Life is coming to an end very soon. I'm 30 years old, I'm 32, I'm 25, I'm 26, I'm 19, I'm 21, I'm 40. Look yourself in the mirror and realize that you're going to die. Realize people are dying at this very moment as we're engaging with each other right now. And once you die, it's over. Done. No more opportunities. Finished. First thing is to realize and ask yourself the question, okay, I realize I'm going to die. I realize my life is going to come to an end. How do I want to live this? What do I want to make of this? What do I want to do for my soul? What do I want to do for myself? Where do I want myself to be at the end of the day, at the end of the road of life? Really ask ourselves that question. And at the same time, realize that we are weak. We're going to have shortcomings. We're going to fall off track. And there are traps literally every direction you look in. There are traps all over the place. Right? And at the same time, realize this reality. And then also remind yourself that the revelation of God, the final revelation of God, is probably sitting on your shelf right now, in your house, in your room. Once you have this realization, we have to make that conscious choice. We have to exercise that free will that God has given us. And we can exercise it. If we choose to do this, we can do this. We have to choose to then get up and decide to make that change immediately. Don't delay it. Don't look at the uncles that are sitting in the mosques, although they're not in the mosques right now because of lockdown, but the uncles that were sitting in the mosque, don't follow their philosophy. May God bless them. Everyone has, I'm not taking the mick out of uncles. Don't get what I'm saying wrong, but don't look at the uncles that are sitting in the mosques and think, I'm going to follow in the same footsteps. I'll live my life. I'll just do whatever I can up until I'm 40, 50, 60 years old, and then I will start, worshiping God in the way that He deserves to be worshipped and fix up my life. Look, firstly, you don't know if you're going to make it to 50 or 60. I don't know if I'm going to make it to that age. And may God give us all long, healthy lives in obedience to Him, but we don't know if we're going to get there. And secondly, why waste 50 years you're not going to get back? Well, God has told you that those years were there for you to use in the right way and to worship God. Why waste them consciously? Why waste them? So I guess to summarize, to conclude, what I'm saying is, yes, it's difficult. Yes, we live in difficult times. Yes, there are so many distractions. Yes, there are so many, obstacles in our way. And yes, all of these things make it very difficult to climb out of that world. Very difficult to unplug yourself from the matrix. I know it's difficult. It's difficult for me. It's difficult, but if you make that sacrifice, it's something we can do as human beings. You know what's amazing about human beings? One of the blessings God has given us is that we have foresight. We can look into the future. That's amazing. Not literally, but we can perceive the future. We can plan for the future. We can set goals. So, and we have to remind ourselves, therefore, that what we need to do is we need to prepare ourselves to make the sacrifice in the moment. Sacrifice immediate gratification. Experience and go through the pain of giving up those things that give us pleasure in the immediate moment, which we know and which God has told us, and we know from a fitri perspective are bad for us. Really try hard to sacrifice those things, brothers and sisters. And why? For the greater good, the greater goal, which is what? You give these things up for the sake of God, and God has something far greater for you in store. You give these things up for the sake of God, and God will give you good much better in this life as well. Don't worry, it's not only in the next life, in this life as well you get better. And in the next life, right? But it's about making that sacrifice and making that commitment and being ready to experience some of the pain that's going to come along with this. Look, life is full of pain already, right? Pain is going to hit you from one angle or the other. Pain is going to come your way from one direction or the other. That's inevitable. That's inevitable. It's going to happen. We're probably experiencing pain in our lives right now. I'm sure you are. I am, in many ways, in many perspectives from my life. However, why not consciously and using your free will make some sacrifices, which are calculated sacrifices, and be ready to experience some pain in the short run, which is calculated in a way you know it's going to benefit you in a greater way in the future. Why not do that for the sake of God? And really think about this. I leave you guys with this. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. And make sure, guys, to tune in today, 5:30 p.m. I have a very, very, I think it's going to be an important live stream with Dr. Steph Keris. We're going to be talking about, the history of Islam, atheism, the Enlightenment, all of these interesting topics. But just a little plug on that. Make sure to check that out. But anyway, without detracting too much from what we're discussing here, really, please, brothers, sisters, friends, atheist brothers and sisters in humanity, think about life. Don't waste another moment. Really reflect upon your existence and move. Try to move in the right direction. I leave you guys with this. Take care until next time. Assalamu alaikum.